These are container gardens, and they're a new concept for Chelsea. And what the RHS did is they had a sort of limited competition, and they asked people to design a container garden, and they gave them a bursary of £5,000, and then they could add to it as well if they liked. They also supplied the hedging, the beach hedging, which contains them. So they've all got exactly the same space, exactly the same side boundaries, and they've changed the back boundaries. And this one is designed by Dabrowska-Jaudi, and it looks superficially very, very simple. But when you look at it with a wee bit more depth, it's actually pretty complex. It's got a breed and gravel floor, which I think is lovely as ever. The wall at the back is porcelain, and it's actually clad onto a breeze block wall. In the middle is an amethyst, and amethyst is meant to mean all sorts of spiritual things, and that is the centre point. It's got the green wall running down the back, which goes into the water, and the water has the black dye in it, so it is just a shallow tray about that deep, but because you put the black dye in the water, it makes it look as though it could be 10 metres deep, and you get these wonderful reflections. So I think that's quite successful. Then the main point of the whole garden really are these wonderful containers. So she's got 3 large containers, and each of them has got maybe 10 different species of plants in, but she has repeated the same plant in some containers. And those look immaculate, but actually to keep these containers looking that immaculate would be quite a lot of hard work, but I do think they look really beautiful. They've all got the pittosporums in, this little pittosporum nana, which is not particularly hardy in the UK. In some places it can be. Then they've got the lovely white astrantias, which they've all got, which look good for so many months. And they've all got the lovely grassy Lirio muscari. With these, she's used the white form. Often you see it in the big blue or the blue form, but here we've got the white form because she's kept the palette very green and white with the odd pop of pink or mauve. So altogether, I think it's brilliantly done, a bit of catmint there, and the Rus typhina, the female Rus typhina, this is the one with the dissected leaf, and you can see the candles just coming up into bud there. So I think it's a stunning, very simple garden, but gosh, you'd have to be on top form to keep it looking as good as this all the time. This garden, this container garden, is designed by Mika Misawa, and it's inspired by a fusion of British and Japanese, and it really does feel very Japanese to me. I like the way she's used cubes of euonymus microphylla. I've tried that at home for a box substitute. It obviously doesn't get the box blight or the box moth. It's not as tight as box, but I think it's a pretty good substitution if you want a substitution. I was amazed at the poppy red orange nerines at the back. I've never seen those colours before. Those are 3 different nerines, and they look serene against the white backdrop. Acer palmatum, Japanese ace is what you expect. Lovely grasses and a little pine. It just feels so Japanese to me. I often laugh when I see English attempts at Japanese gardens, and whenever I bring Japanese clients to Chelsea and we look at these gardens, they always laugh because they feel they're not Japanese, but I'm sure that they would love Mika's attempt, and it does feel slightly British, but to me it feels more Japanese. But I think it's really peaceful, really charming, and she hasn't used breed and gravel like most of the others, but it's a lovely little setup, and I'm sure lots of people would love this as a container garden. This garden is designed by Ellie Edkins, and it's designed to be for the seaside in a shady position, and it does feel like the seaside. These containers she had custom made, and they're made from corrugated iron. One is a pool and the rest are planters. Although she's had them custom made, they would be quite simple to make from some corrugated iron in a circular thing. and rivet them together. She's got pot rivets down the side. She has put on the top, which I think is very wise, this thing, because it is very sharp when you cut corrugated iron, which you can cut with a disc cutter or similar. And she's made them different sizes, different heights and different colours. And although it looks fairly straightforward and simple, it's actually been very well thought out, I think, because it does form a lovely hub where you feel quite sheltered and screened. You've got the beautiful outdoor shower, which are all the rage nowadays, and it is all for the shade. So you've got big fatsias, and you've got the pickerel weeds in the water, and you've got heucheras, and unusually, again for Chelsea this year, you've got box. Everybody's steered well clear of box, but here she's used it, and I endorse that. I think there's many ways you can get around the problems with box. So I think it's a very simple garden. The colours feel quite seasidey. It works very well with this limited palette, and I think it's quite functional as well. If you've been dozing off watching this video, look at this garden. This will pep you up no end. It's designed by John McPherson, and he comes to gardening from a very different background. He works for the Arts Council, and so he's put a very strong, bold stamp on this. He's taken all different containers, just everyday run-of-the-mill containers, and he's just painted them in different colours, or he's done the Andy Warhol touch with a can of soup, and then he's got these little seats, which are soap pads, Brill, not Brillo, but they're Brill pop pads. Wonderful little chairs. I love the bust that he's done here. Instead of a real 3D bust, he's just got two bits of opposing ply, and he's painted these rather funky faces on them. And he's done the same there with that statue. The background in graffiti, coloured gravels you can see on top, which I think florists use quite a bit, purples and pinks and other colours, and very bold planting, all very different, all very lively. I think it's a really different garden. It's nice to have some people from different disciplines, and I think it works really well. This container garden is by Sarah Edwards, and her whole concept for this tiny space is to think big. And I always think when you put big elements into a small space, strangely, it does make it look bigger, because you're going right up in the 3-dimension. And she's gone into the tree layer, the shrub layer, the fern layer. And what she's actually used for her containers are what are called intermediate bulk containers. And these are used for carrying big liquids around, and companies lease them. And towards the end of their life, they're available at actually quite reasonable rates. She's gone for keeping them white. They usually are white. Sometimes you see them in black and blue, I think. And she's got a blue backdrop behind me. I find the white and metal a little bit harsh, but I think I would be tempted to put a colour on them and to stain this in a lead effect or something like that. I think that would give it a completely different look, but she's gone for the very sort of industrial luxe look, which fine, lots of people love. And she's sort of prettied them up by putting the ferns and things around them. So she's got actually a mini bit of a woodland here, and it would be absolutely humming with birds and bees and insects on a sunny day. And she's got water planting in this one, and obviously water is one of the biggest draws you can possibly have for wildlife, and some funky silver furniture. So it's a lovely little space that you could sit in, garden, encourage wildlife to come and visit you.
And just round the corner are a series of, well, sheds full of extraordinary houseplants. From autumnal pumpkin paradises to brilliant bathroom displays, and a pharmacy extolling the medicinal benefits of some of our horticultural heroes. But for me, one pimped up shed took centre stage.
I think this garden is the most fun garden of the whole show. It's one of a series of gardens for house plants, and it's designed by Ian Drummond, and he does parties and landscapes, and he's obviously very talented, and he's definitely thought out of the box here. so the shed and all the buildings for this section were done by Malvern Garden Buildings, and they altered them to however the designer wanted them to be. And this one is all designed around a green room. The green room is obviously the place where you go when you're filming or doing radio, and you sit and discuss things with no one around you in peace. So it's meant to be a very peaceful, chilling out environment before you go and give all on stage. And it's just so funny the way he's tied this shed up on like those big macrame planters that you see. And so he's made it look as though it floats with this lovely luminous fuchsia pink rope hanging it from the tree. It's not really hanging, of course, but if you look carefully underneath, and I tell you, I've been down on my hands and knees, you'll see he's set a mirror back underneath it, so it looks as though it's sitting off the earth. And then he's used these wonderful neon, do come through, he's done these wonderful neon strip lights all around it, these tube lights which are sort of reminiscent of a party in a green room. Such clever things. The fuchsia is obviously the hot colour, because if you've watched your pages of the news this week, it's all about Fashion Week, and apparently we're all wearing fuchsia. Well, I'm sporting a wee bit of fuchsia, but I'm obviously not on trend, sadly. But the way he's brought such a strong colour throughout, and actually a lot of them are just normal planters that you could pick up for anywhere, and he's just got a spray can of fuchsia. He's got a rug on the little floor there with a beautiful shade over the top. He's got beautiful plants when you look inside. They're just wonderful planting, and the way he's used them in really innovative ways. It really does sing. We were talking about the roof yesterday, and the way the trees, obviously the plane trees, are scattering leaves all over the top of the roof, but we think that's fun. He was thinking, should I sweep them up? Should I leave them? Because judging is a big thing. You know, they all have put a lot of effort into these creations, and if they walk away with a great medal, it just really puts the icing on the cake. So it's one of several gardens here, but this is definitely the standout fun garden. Fantastic.
In our final Chelsea film, we'll be looking at the main RHS gardens. From the Queen's Green Canopy Garden to a design based on the UN Climate Change Conference, COP26.